On episode 259 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet Melissa Henig and discuss her book, Raw Paleo. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/259. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. We're in the final days now for the signing up for the June challenge. It's going to be a step challenge. We're going to see how many days in a row during the month of June we can go with 10,000 steps or more per day. 10,000 steps is kind of one of the prescribed levels if you want to maintain health. And so we're going to do this for the month of June. It's a step challenge. We're going to use the app called Stride Kick. In using that app, it makes it very easy for me to facilitate this challenge, for you to follow through with the challenge. But the one problem with that is I have to sign you up on the day. So I'll have to sign you up on June 1st. To do that, though, I'm creating a sign-up waiting list. And so if you'll go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/step, you can sign up for that. Now, I need you to be on that list so that I can get you the invite. So make sure you're on the list by going to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/step, sign up, and then confirm your email address, and then I'll be able to send you the sign-up email on the morning of June 1st. So I do hope you'll join us. We're starting to get some folks signing up for it. I'm pretty excited about this. I think it's going to be a cool thing. So looking forward to seeing you there. Now, our guest today is Melissa Henig, and she kind of migrated from a raw vegan diet to a raw paleo diet. And when I say raw, I'm not just talking about the vegetables. So this is a very interesting conversation. Melissa's a nutritional coach, a wellness coach. So she is practicing what she preaches. It's a really interesting eating style. We talk about it in some detail. So I know you're going to enjoy this episode. So with no further ado, here's Melissa Henig. So Melissa, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thanks for having me.
So now the term raw paleo kind of caught my attention, and I did hear you on another podcast. So I kind of knew as I was kind of getting into this what I was getting into. But this is a very, very interesting book. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's, I'm really excited to just let people know and expose them to another version of a raw diet, which is not a raw vegan, it's not plant-based, but it's just raw everything, raw omnivorous foods.
Yeah, and I think that frightens some of us because we've been told our whole lives, you need to make sure you cook this way or cook that and prepare that way, and if you don't, well, you're going to get sick, kind of stuff. And so I think there's just this food phobia for a lot of these things. And I want to get into the nature of why this works a little bit later. But before we get there, what I'd really like to do is, you obviously didn't just grow up being raw paleo. You kind of came upon it. And I really like your story because I think it's kind of compelling for a lot of us that are trying to find health and fitness as we kind of weave our way through this. So if you don't mind telling us your story, I think it's really going to help us kind of put this into context.
Yeah, of course. I didn't grow up eating raw meat. It's so unconventional. I did grow up in a health-conscious home, though, where I was drinking green juice and other things like that. But I was brought into this raw paleo path on a raw vegan diet. That was my footstep in the door. And I had all this energy. I felt really good. I was eating all these plants. And then, sure, I started having deficiencies and I was losing my energy. And I was told about this raw paleo way of eating at this store in Venice Beach called Rawsome. And all the folks there were telling me, you're probably deficient in zinc, in iron, in B12, and cholesterol, and you should try some of these raw eggs and this raw milk. And I was open to it because I was noticing some things from this raw vegan diet. Something was missing, but I loved the raw aspect of the live food and the enzymes and the probiotics. And I still wanted to be on that path. So this sounded really intriguing. And I tried the raw meat one day and I lived. I felt really good. I could feel my body right away saying, yeah, this feels good. And ever since then, being exposed to it at the store, I've been eating that way since and experiencing really really good health benefits from it. A lot of strength is coming from it. I'm eating raw animal protein, which I was missing, and it's just keeping me really strong without a lot of exercise or other things. A lot of my strength and energy comes from the food these days. So I'm happy to have found this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of miss the fact that that's actually where we get our building blocks for our body. That's where we get our energy. And, really, I think, more and more, many of us are coming around to say, okay, the more natural and wholesome our food is, the better we're going to be about having the right building blocks and having the right energy. That is, if we're getting complete nutrition. And you were not getting that with the raw vegan diet, because I assume you weren't supplementing with a lot of things, which a lot of them end up doing if they want to stay, but you tried this way.
Right. Yeah. I love getting all my nutrients from a whole food form. I'm still not into supplements, and I never have been. So yeah, you're right. Some of them may get by for a long time on a lot of supplements, but it wasn't sustainable for me for very long.
Okay. Now, like a lot of people, I've tried sushi and enjoy it, love it. And, actually don't go that often because it becomes a very, very expensive trip because I enjoy it that much. And I've tried beef tartare and things like that. So I've been on that side. I've had some of the raw foods. But I think one of the things that a lot of people are still shying away from because it's gotten such a bad rap is this cholesterol. And you mentioned that as a nutrient that you needed. Can you kind of talk into, some of the myths of cholesterol and then what cholesterol actually does for us?
Right. Cholesterol, it's an essential lipid that is in every cell of our body, and we really do need cholesterol. There has been so much bad science and just really bad information. It's misunderstood, cholesterol. How important it is for the body, for the brain, for the hormones. That's one thing I help a lot of women with fertility because they're not getting good forms of high quality raw cholesterol. And it's just so important for it's the building blocks of estrogen and progesterone and all these hormones that are so important. Once everything's balanced and in the hormonal aspect, things just function so much better throughout your whole body. So I love cholesterol for one of the main reasons is for balancing and manufacturing and regulating hormones, but also it's so good for the brain and the nervous system. And they have actually, the American Health Association has now given us the green light to eat saturated fat and cholesterol. And I love that when the new studies come out and the science does change. And now they're saying it's okay. It's got to be the right form. Like we don't want trans fats. We don't want oxidized, rancid cholesterol. So it's all about sourcing really good, high quality food. And it really is our friend. There's even research saying women that have high cholesterol, they live longer. They have much better brain function and much better memory. And even now, I'm actually pregnant right now. And years ago, I couldn't get pregnant. I had taken all these tests and I was really low in progesterone. And that's one of the main fertility hormones for supporting a baby. And now with this newfound diet, I know that's just, you can heal yourself with eating good cholesterol. It's just kind of wrapping your mind around, yeah, that's right, this is okay for me, and doing away with the old myths that it's going to cause heart disease.
Well, first, congratulations on the pregnancy. That's really good news.
Thank you.
Now, one of the interesting things I kind of got into, and you talk about raw and you talk about fresh, and you just talked about rancid. And so I know, there's certain oils that you don't want to heat. So I've always been familiar with the fact that obviously you don't want to heat an oil if it's not prepared to be heated over a certain amount. So there's certain oils that you cook with and certain oils that you don't. But you actually mentioned in the books that there's other ways that oil, the nutrients in food can be degraded by freezing and whatnot. And so I was kind of surprised that frozen was also kind of off your list and because of the nature of it degrading the food.
Right. Yeah, it does denature the food when you freeze the molecules. It can change the structure. And my whole thing is I'm pretty laid back. I'm not really dogmatic. I do eat some cooked foods. I do the best I can. If I'm in an area where I can only get frozen beef and it's really good, I'll still eat that. It's better than cooking it. So when I do get really extreme about the freezing, being a denaturing process, that's when I'm using food as the highest healing potential available. You want it never frozen, never heated, just straight from nature, as fresh as possible. That's going to have the most healing potential. but also I'm open to doing the best you can, because it is hard in some areas to source never frozen fresh meat, which is always my first choice. But I've definitely been stuck in areas where I can't find a good butcher shop, and I will eat some frozen meat.
Yeah, the farm that I buy from, they do freeze the meat only because, they do kind of their harvesting at certain times of the year, and then they sell it out over the course of the next several months. So it's, mine has been frozen for the most part. I don't know that it's been a while, and we're not really good about butcher shops down here, which is kind of a sad thing. Another thing where we really struggle is with the raw milk. And, I know that there's a battle going on around that, because I was very interested in the raw butter concept, because I know you said in the book you eat up to a pound a week. I'm probably in that same game with you. I probably eat about a pound of butter a week. Mine, I do go grass fed, but it's never been the raw butter. So I was like, okay, I got to try to find some of this raw butter, and you cannot buy it unless you can source it locally. And you do have a website that is it's called www.realmilk.com. So I'm going to have to check that out to see if I can find it. But I was actually recommended, one of the companies I reached out to, they said, well, buy the raw milk locally and make it yourself. That's what we do. And so like they said, they fall back on their product when they can't get enough of the raw milk. But can you kind of get into the raw butter, the benefits of it being raw versus pasteurized, and why you might want to go that route?
Yeah, again, it's always going to have a higher healing potential when it's raw, because when you pasteurize dairy, you're changing the whole molecular structure of the proteins and the fats. The main reasons, the fat-soluble vitamins I'm eating the raw butter for, they're changed. They're not in their original state where the cream rises to the top and you make butter. It's now been heated. It's pasteurized. To me, it's a whole different food. And I actually noticed that, again, when I can't find raw butter, I will go to the Kerrygold pasteurized grass-fed butter, but it puts weight on me. The whole molecule, everything is so changed. It reacts a lot differently in the body. And I could eat the pounds and pounds of raw butter and actually be losing weight. So I noticed such a difference with the raw and the pasteurized, just from years and years of personal experience with it as well. And then, things get denatured when they're heated. All the lipids and the fat-soluble vitamins, the A, D, the K2, everything that I eat the raw butter for. I know it's hard to source it, but if you can, or go to the realmilk.com, you put in your zip code, you can usually find a farmer. I actually just had 5 pounds of raw butter shipped to me, because it's just such an important staple, especially when you are growing a baby. You really want these fat-soluble vitamins for the brain and for the wide cheekbones and jaw, and everything's going to form perfectly. You need these good, healthy, raw fats.
Yeah, well, I'd actually added their product. It was an 8-pound shipment. They're from Texas, and I was added that to my wish list. And I was like, okay, as soon as they come back and answer my question of whether this is raw, and they came back and said, no, unfortunately, it's not. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I am going to be on that website looking around, because that is something now that is really compelling, and I want to give that a shot.
Yeah. Because I was just going to get into the raw butter, how it's just lubricating of all the joints and the digestive system, and it's good for the skin, and that was it. Just kind of follow up with the health benefits of it.
And I think that's important to understand, is that, all of the fat-soluble vitamins are kind of those things that they are in our other foods, but we don't digest them quite as well as I think we do when they come and they're delivered with fat.
Exactly. And they're different forms. The animal kingdom vitamin A that you do find in the raw butter, it's totally different than the vitamin A that's in carrots. It's not the same. The vitamin A in carrots is a precursor. It's beta carotene. It's not this true source of the vitamin A for the skin and the eyes and all the nutrients, the hormones. We need vitamin A. So it is actually different than what we get in the plants.
Now, the next one, we all, I think a lot of us, we're 40 plus, we're old enough to remember the Rocky movie when he drank the raw eggs. But we've effectively been told, one, that's not good because of the bioavailability of biotin and how that could, the egg white could mess with that. And then also that there's the potential for salmonella and whatnot. So could you kind of get into why eggs in the raw are not really such a bad thing?
Well, yeah, raw eggs, it comes down to sourcing. I always source pasture-raised raw eggs. So the chickens are running around in grass. They're soaking up sunlight. The nutritional profile is so much higher when you actually source really good raw eggs. So all the health benefits I always talk about with balancing hormones, and the raw eggs are good for your brain. They have a lot of choline. They're good for your eyes. This is when you're sourcing expensive eggs. So, it's all about sourcing the clean chickens that are running around in grass the way nature intended, produce clean food. So I've interviewed dozens and dozens of people for years that have eaten raw eggs, and no one has ever come across a biotin deficiency or any type of salmonella, because it starts, number one, with sourcing really good food. And it's totally worth the money because you feel so good from it. You can tell such a big difference. Yeah, so biotin in the egg yolk is one of nature's richest sources, is in the yolk itself. So it totally counteracts any avidin that would be in the white, where people are kind of worried about eating raw eggs because of the avidin. And there's actually a lot of research that shows when people cook egg whites, they're trying to deactivate the avidin so that they don't get a biotin deficiency. Half the time it doesn't even deactivate. So I think I don't want to denature nature. It knows exactly what it's doing. It comes together, an egg yolk and an egg white, in this perfect package. And so to me, I eat the whole egg because you always find fat and protein together in nature. Just like in the egg, you have the fat and you have the protein, and you find all the fat around the edges of the meat. It does come together, and my whole thing is not denaturing nature. Nature is wise, and I don't ever want to fight it or go against it. And so that's why I eat the whole raw egg.
I was with you on the butter. I could stick with you on the eggs. The chicken I kind of got because when I really got to looking at it, I mean, you're basically kind of, cooking it with the lemon juice and whatnot a little bit for the most part. And then the beef, I'm like, okay, beef tartare and stuff like that. And I'll eat a steak is about as rare as anybody ever has. So it's like, okay, I get all of those. And then you got to the organ meats. And don't get me wrong, I love organ meats. And in fact, almost every time my wife goes out of town and I'm by myself, I'm eating organ meats like they're going out of business, because that's about the only time she's not going to eat them. And so I start prepping them for myself, and that's what I do. But raw organ meat kind of was one of those, okay, that might be the last thing I try, but it's something that I probably should try. And you're going to tell me why, right?
Yeah, that's sometimes people, I try to expose them first to the raw, or just ease them in. I don't talk about eating raw chicken or organ meats right off the bat. But yeah, our traditional cultures for years have thrived eating raw organ meat. And it's always wise to go back to what our ancestors did. And some, things, when people in the modern world get so disconnected to nature and traditional cultures, that I do go back to the wisdom of our ancestors. And the one thing they did was they thrived on the organ meat. And what's so special about them is they're a concentrated source of nutrients, like raw liver. It's concentrated vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin B12, vitamin B6. The nutritional profile is so high that if you can sneak it in there, you're just doing yourself such a favor. Like when I make these raw smoothies, the raw liver smoothie, I just put a little piece in there. It's maybe a half inch to an inch, and you can't taste it at all. But you're getting so much value out of that smoothie. And I actually have a raw liver in the book that is so good. It's actually better than any cooked liver pate I've ever had, with raw butter, raw eggs, raw liver, turmeric, ginger, a little apple cider vinegar. It's delicious. And you can spread that on some gluten-free bread or gluten-free crackers or something. That's where, if you're getting the liver in your body like that, it's okay to be eating some cooked food here and there. That's where I'm not totally dogmatic. Yeah, so I eat it because it's such a concentrated source of nutrients.
Well, I was going to challenge myself to kind of go through and eat the liver. And as I got into it and I was looking at the recipes, because there's a ton of recipes in the back for all of these, and even condiments and whatnot. So it's kind of pretty robust. I was like, okay, but I don't have raw butter. I don't have these others. So I'm like, okay, I've got to find the raw butter first. And then I'll, so I promise you, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that pate before I'm done here. And I think, one of the things I just want to encourage is, it sounds a little different, and it is different. It's not, like you said, it's kind of a little bit on the edge, but just try it. Try dipping your toe in the water and just see how you feel. Because one of the cool things about food is food tells our body when it's right. Our body just feels it. And when you start eating better, you start feeling better. And so if this is the right thing for you, once you start trying a few things, you'll probably notice a difference. And you did too. That's kind of part of your story was you almost immediately started feeling a lot better.
Right, definitely. And like I said, I still eat some cooked food. So here I can notice a huge difference when I eat my raw meat. It takes nothing to digest it. It has enzymes in it. It's not denatured. It actually has probiotics naturally in the meat, just like raw milk has probiotics. So I eat less. It's quality over quantity as well. So here I can, 4 ounces of raw meat will fill me up and satiate me rather than when I sit down and eat cooked meat, say a burger that's really rare, it slows me down a little. I could feel the difference in my digestion. And you can, once you get into this, you can tell for yourself, wow, I feel really good eating this. I get instant energy. I feel strong. And not that cooked food is bad, but it doesn't quite have the healing potential. It doesn't have the enzymes or the probiotic in it.
Well, like I said, I'm going to start doing some work here and see where I can find and source some of this food. And I'm going to give a lot of these things a try. I really appreciate you introducing me to this. I think I'd seen a documentary on a guy who would eat raw meat. He would show up at the butcher and pretty much just walk right out there and sit down at a table outside the butcher, but it was just a short little documentary and they didn't really go into the benefits. And I really appreciate that your book did take the time to really explain the principles for why this is the right thing to do. And again, just try it and see how it works for you. So I am going to follow my own advice and do that.
Oh, good. Yeah, raw meat is a staple in every culture. They have a raw meat dish in Italy and France and Africa. I mean, there's raw meat everywhere. And I'm just here to tell people it's okay. You don't have to be afraid of if you source good quality food. I don't want people to be afraid of things. And I'm not saying to be 100% raw, but just be open-minded and try things. So that's awesome. You're going to try it. Okay. Now, if someone wanted to learn more about the book, learn more about you, where would you like for me to send them? Well, I do a lot of social media stuff. So I'm on Instagram. I'm Raw Paleo Melissa. I'm on Facebook. Raw Paleo Melissa. And then, of course, my website, and that's just rawpaleo.com. And people can email me at melissa@rawpaleo.com. I do get a lot of emails. People do need help sourcing food. So I do the best I can at answering them. And rawpaleo.com. Awesome. Well, this is going to be episode 259. So you can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/259 and find all those links and all the links to Melissa's social media there. So Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time to come in and talk about your book. Like I said, I just find the topic fascinating and I do want to explore and see how well my body reacts to raw food. Yeah. Thanks for having me. You're welcome. This has been fun. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, I discuss meal timing. What is the right timing of meals? Should you be eating 6 meals per day or 1 meal per day? We'll discuss that next time. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.